welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So, Magic 2012, or M12, 249 cards released on the 15th of July 2011. Of the 249 cards in the set, we have 101 commons, 60 uncommons, 53 rares, 15 mythic rares and 20 basic lands. There are a number of cycles in here. Obviously, being a core set, there's going to be, very roughly 50-50 split between reprints and new cards. Also, look out for a couple of keywords and abilities which we'll be talking about, which is Bloodthirst and Hexproof. So I'm just going to scroll down here just to give us an overall look and feel of the set. Now, as you can see, because we've got a large number of reprints, there's going to be inconsistency is the wrong word, but the artwork across the set is going to look quite different because they're pulling in from various sets in addition to the reprints. The other thing, and we'll go through in a moment, we'll have a look at the tribal aspect, because you may have noticed as we're scrolling through by colour, certain tribes are, well represented over others, and maybe ones that you might not see so much. I'm thinking of illusions in blue, for instance. I've got a nice amount of utility artifacts that do a quite, a wide-ranging amount of things. There's a cycle of non-basics in the land, and we've got our land artwork here, our basic land artwork, which we'll have a look at. As I've mentioned before, I would have got up to this set, I believe, when I did my Land Ahoy episode, or at least one of them will have this, probably maybe the second one actually. So you can check out the land artwork if you want to see on the physical cards up close. So let's have a look through. First of all, we'll start off, as we always do, with the reprint side of things. So we have 131 cards out of 249 that are reprints. I've obviously excluded the basic lands here, and you may recognise the artwork as being from other sets in Magic, but I always sort of try and remember to net those off when I'm doing this. So 131, so slightly more than half are reprints. And then we've got 98 cards which are not reprints, so they're all, at the time, they were all new cards. Now, of course, some of those may well be functional reprints, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later. So, colourless cards, there's 34 of those, and as you can see, if we go down, they're all either going to be artifacts or lands. Actually, colourless to cast, because that's not true about the lands. So again, let me, I must remember to do this. I tend to forget that we don't really want to be including lands here. There we go, that's better. 23. So I'll have to remember to do that going forward. And we'll come back to artifacts later, but just so you can get a feel for the colour balance. And you know, if post Eldrazi any colourless non-artifacts have crept into any sets. In fact, I'm going to talk about these in a moment. Let me move that. So, monocoloured cards, 200 cards in the set are monocoloured. I don't think they did anything unusual where we had reprints or new cards which were coloured artifacts. And again, it's always interesting to see how post, say in this case, New Phyrexia, whether any of those sort of cards might crop up in core sets. So we should keep our eyes open for those sort of things. And then multicoloured cards, there weren't any. So it's all multicoloured artifacts or lands in this set. Yeah, so 10 Bloodthirst cards. So with Bloodthirst, if an opponent was dealt damage this turn, this creature enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. And the number after it indicates how much that those counters have been amplified up. So if you get Bloodthirst 3, then it's 3 counters, and so on. And you'll notice there's 3 are vampires, but we have one sort of vampire related. You could think of it like that in black. It's a bat. But we have other cards that aren't vampires with Bloodthirst on them. So we've got an ogre, dragon, minotaur, human in red, and then in green we've got a worm and a crocodile. So clearly in this particular set, Bloodthirst was black, red, green. So store that in the back of your head, but we already know that there are no mono-coloured cards multicoloured cards in here, so I don't think we're going to see that manifesting itself in some legendary. But we'll see what's going on in the legendary side of things. Then we've got hexproof. So with hexproof, this creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Now you'll also notice another common thing you get with core sets is they do tend to always include the reminder text in a core set, because they're assuming, rightly or wrongly, that core sets are going to be picked up by players that are relatively new to the game, or at least that was the plan. Now, as anybody that's got into Magic, halfway through a block, it's not always the case that they're immediately going to gravitate towards the core set, particularly if the core set is 2 or even 3 sets back. So, but that's the basic idea with that. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the tribal aspects, starting off with white for creatures. So you can see we seem to have a number of humans in white and subtypes of soldier as well here. But obviously other things are present like angels. But it does look like the main type is, or the main creature tribal would be human, and the subtypes of soldier are also present here. Yeah, we'll talk about the Titans later. In blue, there's a little bit of interesting thing going on here with illusions. You see here we've got Phantasmal Bear, Phantasmal Image. We've got Lord of the Unreal, which is, I suppose you could call it an Illusion Lord. We've got Phantasmal Dragon. So we're seeing a presence of the illusion subtype. Again, a number of humans in blue. Let's see how many merfolk. 1, 2. Yeah. It's not really strong in one particular tribe. I mean, there are more illusions, but for a subtype, but you've got your bears. You do have humans here as well. Rogues and wizards. There's a couple of sphinxes. Okay, in black. Based on what we've seen so far, I would expect to see a number of vampires present, which we definitely see here. So that looks like definitely the predominant tribe in black, followed very closely by zombies. We've also got a good old reassembling skeleton here. And in terms of subtypes, we've got shamans, wizards, assassins, some warriors here, and you'll see some giants as well across the set. Okay, red. So it looks like, no surprise, we have a number of goblins in red. And also several dragons here. Humans again. There's one there, one there. Warriors and shamans as a subtype. Don't think we have... We've got a couple of elementals. It definitely looks like goblins is the main red tribe. And then green, well, I suspect elves may be a thing, but we'll see. Actually, it's pretty broad. Looking at this, a couple of worms, some beasts, some spiders, a rhino, more spiders, wolf, ooze, crocodile. Wow, it's all over the shop. We've got a bear, we've got a couple of human shamans. And Birds of Paradise is in the set as well. So yeah, it looks like there's maybe more elves than anything else, but out of the 24 cards, what do we have? 3 elves. We've got an elf lord here. Cares about other elves. Although the elves are... So the elf archdruid is a rare, but the other two are common. I don't know if anybody ever attempted to draft elf tribal when they drafted this set. And as you know, I've always got a slot now for the big spells. So when I say big spells, basically any spell that costs more than 6 to cast. So 9 in this set: Carnage Worm, Furyborn Hellguy, Garrick's Horde, Pentavus, doing interesting things with counters, Rearsguard Demon, Sauron's Vengeance, Sphinx of Uthun, Sutured Ghoul, and Scrambleverse. So the only thing they didn't put a large white spell in here. It's funny they didn't try and sort of slide in some angel or something. So Planeswalkers are in the set. So we've got Gideon, Jace, Sorin Markov, Chandra the Firebrand, and Garrick Primal Hunter. Now you'll notice while we've got Planeswalkers in here, it's not been restricted to the original Lorwyn Walkers. And the other thing here is this was the first time where they actually had new Planeswalkers. So there were 3 new Planeswalkers in a core set. So previously, when they'd had them in core sets, they were reprints. And you'll notice that, like Magic 2011, there's a number of cards that reference Planeswalkers as well as we go through. So, with that in mind, so that was obviously a cycle there. We have a cycle of namesakes at rare. So every Planeswalker got a rare card referencing them and working in conjunction with them. So you can see sort of echoes of what was on all the different Planeswalkers. Not only were there namesake cards at rare, but there are also namesake cards at common. So there are 5 commons that reference their respective Planeswalkers in the name. And again, you've got some abilities here which in some way it's interesting though, because how close is that to their ability? What tokens is Garrick? See, Garrick's spitting out 3/3 beasts. This is a 3/2 beast with trample. So yeah, it's pretty loose actually. Do we have... Yeah, we've got some interaction here with tap going on as well. Yeah, so they're sort of playing around with the ability a little bit. And we have these colour hoses. So with these are uncommon cards specifically to be designed to be played against its enemy colours. They're reprints from Magic 2011. So we've got Celestial Purge, works against black or red, Fresh Freeze, red or green, Deathmark, green or white, Combust, where is it? Hang on, I think I made a mistake there, have I? Oh, sorry, yep. There we go, it's down here, white or blue, and Autumn's Veil, which is blue or black. The Cycle of Titans returned. So these are reprints from Magic 2011. It's interesting that you're getting reprints from a core set in another core set. So Sun Titan, Frost Titan, Grave Titan, Inferno Titan, 6/6 for 4, and then 2 of the appropriate colour. It's a very powerful ability on there. Triggers whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks. So yeah, these were a big deal at the time. Cycle of Mages, they're 2/1 wizards for 1 and then the appropriate colour. They have an activated ability involving 1 mana of colour, and you can see that in addition to maybe additional mana of any colour in some cases. And then we've got this flavor text which does relate to the sort of clan of wizards for the respective colours. And guess what? We've got Lucky Charms. So yeah, Lucky Charms, uncommon artifact, costs 2 to cast, and they have ability that allows their controller to gain 1 life whenever a spell of the appropriate colour is played. They were reprinted from originally Darksteel. These first cropped up in, and you've seen other, or you have seen and you will see other sets which have artifacts that care in various ways about certain colours being played, or have a synergy with certain colours, even though the spell itself doesn't have that colour in the casting cost, and then you get some sort of reward as a consequence, some sort of buff or something like that. So we did have a cycle of these. So allied coloured check lands. Rare dual lands, they come into play tapped unless you control a land of one of the appropriate colours, and surprise surprise, are reprinted from Magic 2011. This is something I noticed which is really interesting. When you first cracked open M12 for the first time, you definitely got that M11 vibe coming through, which I found pretty cool. That there was a little bit of bleed over between core sets for cards that specifically were in a core set before to add utility. So that was cool to see that. We've got this 3 card cycle of empires, so something of empires: Crown of Empires, Sceptre of Empires, Throne of Empires. 2 at uncommon and 1 at rare. They have an activated ability that produces an even more powerful effect if you control all 3 of these artifacts. So sometimes you might see this, I don't know if it's a particular thing in a core set, but those are the ones I remember most. I don't know if you remember later on in Magic, I think it was the whole Cauldron and the Newt thing. I can't remember the name of the cycle, but I think you know the ones I mean. It's interesting how they interact. Some of them have, not in this case, but some of them allow you to sort of tutor for the missing pieces. Those sort of cards. And it's always interesting if you're drafting the set and you've got early on like a Throne of Empires. Would you want to just see if you can complete the set and just try and sort of pull that off in a game? A couple of mirrored pairs. We've got Divine Favour, Dark Favour. Do stuff with enchanted creatures, power and toughness. Divine Favour, when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. When Dark Favour enters the battlefield, you lose 1 life. With enchanted creature, you got +1, +3, and for Dark Favour, it's +3, +1. So the power toughness is inverted. Casting cost, same CMC, but obviously 1 of the appropriate mana. There's actually a pair of equipment. I don't even know if I've seen equipment pairs before. Or if I have, I just don't remember. I mean, I've done so many of these set musings now that sometimes that happens. So uncommon artifacts, equipment, which have the same equip cost of 3 and give the equipped creature 3 + 0 or 0 + 3 power toughness. So again, they've done something with that power toughness flip. Kite Shield is actually 0 to cast though. Greatsword is 3, but the equip costs are the same. Mythics, 15 mythics. So in amongst those mythics we have the Cycle of Planeswalkers, we have the Cycle of Titans and then some additional cards as well beyond those 2 cycles. So 15 is a starting point. So let's see if we can do this on the fly. It's always interesting to do this. So let's take out from that the giants. Would help if I actually spelt type with a P. And also, while we're at it, let's net off the Planeswalkers and see what we get left with. So we started with 15 mythics. What's left? So not surprisingly, 5. Okay, so 5 Planeswalkers out, 5 Titans, Giants out, and we're left with one of each of these. So we've got Angelic Destiny, Time Reversal, Blood of Vazgoth, Fury Hellkite, and Primordial Hydra. All of these are greater than 4 to cast. Some of these are very, as 7, and this is an X and 2 green spell that you'd clearly want to invest a lot of counters in. And you can see these counters keep doubling up. And the black and the red one have got Bloodthirst. Our basic lands. So again, these would be like artwork reprints of previous artwork in other sets, but some classic looking stuff in there. And just so you're clear, so if we look at the non-basics, in addition to the 5 that are a cycle, we've got Buried Ruin. So that's the only non-basic that we haven't looked at so far. So with this one, interesting card. So tap, add colours to your mana pool, but for 2 mana of any colour, you tap it, sacrifice Buried Ruin, return target artifact creature from your graveyard to your hand. I'm just going to see how many times that's been reprinted and whether they did change the artwork, because I don't think they did. So yeah. It's turned up in a few Commander decks, hasn't it? But outside of that, only really like these supplemental sets like Jumpstart and Double Masters. And it was simply in this anthology because that was a reprint of one of the other decks that it was in from earlier. Yeah, all of the legendaries are Planeswalkers. There's no legendary creatures in the set. So that's again going to be interesting when we get to do the Commander Durdle episode, and you'll see what I've done there. So back here, 116 creatures in the set, which we've already had a look through the different colours. But just to get a rough breakdown of how much out of the set were creatures. So if you remember, including everything, including basic lands, there's 249 cards in the set. So out of that, 116 creature cards. We've got 12 straight enchantments in white, blue, black, red and green. We've also got mana barbs here. Oblivion rings in the set. Right, Rites of Flourishing, Zombie Infestation, lots of really interesting utility enchantments basically, in addition to the usual sort of lockdown and pump. 15 cards are enchantment orders, and it's really fascinating that this is this is just a regular enchantment. Well, I find it fascinating. In that it's exiling the card, and obviously that sits on the battlefield. The exiled card is not on the battlefield. Why I said that is I'm trying to think of any what would you call it, like removal, if you like, where the enchanted creature, or it's an aura instead, and then the creature stays on the battlefield. But I can't think of it. I mean, something like a sort of super passivism where basically, creature can't do anything, can't attack, can't block, can't activate its abilities. But it's not physically exiled from the game. So 15 auras, which also include passivism. And of course some of these, as you probably gather, will be locked down or take control or buffed in some way or restricted in some way, whatever it's enchanting. And I'm just looking to see if we've got any land enchantment. Well, Brink of Disaster does creatures or lands. Artifact creatures. Got Adaptive Automaton in this set. Now this was the first set this was printed, so this was very interesting because it sort of filled the gap where you had something that could buff other creatures, and you got to choose the creature type. So it's a lord where you don't have a tribal lord, where you don't have an existing tribal lord. So that was an interesting card that they printed. We've got Pentavus, which is doing counter shenanigans, and also Solemn Simulacrum in the set with the new artwork. And until this point, so it'd been in Mirrodin and it was in the Commander 2011 product. And then one of these other ones where the state of the card or what it can do or its abilities or whatever changes as a result of something else. So with this one, if it's enchanted, so you've got like a Voltron thing going on here as well. So yeah, lots of interesting utility creatures in this set. In terms of equipment, just 4 pieces of equipment. We've got Greatsword, we've got Kite Shield, which we've seen already. We've got Swiftfoot Boots in the set, and we've got World Slayer. With Swiftfoot Boots, just see when that first, M12. So that's when it first appeared. I think, thinking about it, M11 into M12 were a cool couple of core sets. It'd be interesting when we get through the Innistrad block, which will be next after this, and then we get through that and we get to M13. What's going on in M13? So outside of that, so 13 of these regular artifacts, so outside of the life gain cards that we've seen already, again, a number of interesting things going on. We've seen that. We've seen the Crown of Empires, but then we've got things like Druidic Satchel, Manolis, which was this 3 casting cost mana rock. We've got Sundial of the Infinite, which ends the turn. And then we've got Quicksilver Amulet as well. And while we're on the subject of that, I just wanted to just take a look at these, because there's a sort of relation between these cards. So we had Manolis, which, if we look here, you can see this is when we first saw it. It was reprinted in 2019 with a slightly different artwork, and it was also in Hour of Devastation. That's when they first did the newer artwork. But I just wanted to show you against sort of a couple of other 3 mana mana rocks. So you've got Soul Grail way back from Alliances. So the difference here, you can see you've got Manolis, so 3, that's the same. You can tap it, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. With Soul Grail, you have to choose the colour when it comes into play, and then you're stuck with that colour, unless you manage to bounce Soul Grail, which is obviously doable, back to your hand and then recast it. And then you've also got Darksteel Ingot, another 3 casting cost mana rock. But this, in addition to being able to add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool, is also indestructible. So, a bit worse, bit better. And the other thing I was going to look, I think I didn't do it. I was just curious. In terms of reprints. Oops, no, it's not spelled like that, is it? It's Leyline, as in L-E-Y. Did I get... No, okay. Yeah, no, they weren't reprinted. I didn't think they were. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss them. Yep, no. Yeah, so that was the thing, and it does mention it in the Wikipedia article. Sorry, or the MTG wiki is there, and I had said it already. Is there's a in the reprint? So there's a lot of reprints already appeared in Magic 2010 and Magic 2011 as well. So there's a bit of cross-pollination going on here between core sets to some degree, but not in the case of ley lines. I don't think those were in. No, they weren't. So instance, 32 instance. So life gain, these hoses, enchantment destruction, pump and flying, protection, so that's sort of thing in white. Then you get counter spells, conditional counter spells, well, counter hoses. Tap down, another sort of conditional counter spell, a non-creature counter spell, redirects, well, says it in the title. These ones are always interesting, these in blue, where they sort of nerf the creature in some way and take it down to something really small. In this case, like a 1/1 blue frog. Unsummon, creature bounce spell, card draw, which gets slightly pumped if, or increased if you have a certain number of cards in the graveyard. If a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it. I wonder if there was any mill specific cards in here. There's our black destruction stuff, like life swap. These ones as well in black, you see where they mess with the power toughness, direct damage. There's a fling, an incinerate, and a reverberate. So red can also, retarget. And we've got shock in the set and slaughter cry, this sort of asymmetrical pump. We saw, I think, Autumn's Veil already. There was a fog in here as well. So yeah, there's some great utility. Naturalize, plummet, reclaim, titanic growth, +4/+4. So where did that come from? Again, yeah. Lots of firsts in this set of really interesting cards. Sorcery speed, well, we've got Day of Judgment, which comes from Zendikar originally. Timely reinforcements, so token stuff. Divination, you draw 2 cards. Library manipulation, we've got Ponder. And Ponder, that was from Lorwyn. Time reversal. Consume Spirit, Deathmark, Diabolic Tutor, Disentomb, Distress, Hideous Visage, Mind Rot, Monomania, we've got Smallpox, and of course the namesake cards. So we've got Sauron's Vengeance, Taste of Blood, Active Fireball was in here. And that was in 2010, and of course was from way back before then. To Treason, yeah, Goblin Grenade, Lava Axe, Scrambleverse, Tectonic Rift, destroy target land, creature without flying can't block this turn. Bountiful Harvest, Doubling Chant, Overrun, Rampant Growth. Lots of cool stuff. And then back to all of the cards. Wow, this was... Oh yeah. Yeah, I do have a fondness for certain eras of core sets, and I think this was it. It just... Things in some of them, it just gelled really well. And it was nice sometimes when they did have some mechanic or theme or whatever going on that made it a little bit interesting. Like with, those empires and, this had Bloodthirst in it and Hexproof and the illusion stuff. You could do some clever stuff when you were drafting. So in terms of the prices of these cards, so get Grand Abolisher, great card here, 2 white, 2/2. So we have, a white bear, but during your turn your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures or enchantments. $29. Primordial Hydra, which we've seen already, 15. Birds of Paradise, as I pointed out, was reprinted, so that's 12. So we've got quite a big fall off here. We've got Sorin Markov coming in at $10, and Grave Titan at 10. So actually cheaper than the original Magic 2011, which is funny. Like same card really. And then Drowned Catacomb. Yeah, quite a big drop, so I suspect Yeah, we're just going to see like Planeswalkers and utility. Good old Runescarred Demon, 6/6/4/7. And it tutors for a card. And then finally, well, what did you expect with this set? So, in terms of, you know, EDH rec rankings. So yeah, Swiftfoot Boots, Solemn Simulacrum, Rampant Growth, Negate, Land War Elves, Birds of Paradise, Ponder, Sun Titan, the Dual Lands, Buried Ruin, Diabolic Tutor, Acidic Slime was in here, Grand Abolisher, Phantasmal Image, and so on. Reassembling Skeleton, great fun in a reanimation deck when you get this interacting with other things. Yeah, so much good stuff. And at the same time we had intro packs. So with the intro packs, let's look at the colour combinations. Yep, so that for core sets often they keep it pretty simple. So these are all 2 colours and they're all allied colours. So green white, white blue, blue black, black red, and then red green. Now in terms of the actual intro packs themselves, as you saw there were 5 there. So we've got a white green enchantments deck with Aegis Angel, Messer Enchantress, 1 foil, and it's a 60 card deck. Looks like they're not doing anything clever with the lands. I don't think they're likely to give away any of the dual lands within an intro deck. Now these, this was still, was it the single? Yeah, so we're not up to, obviously the changeover happened on M13 when they went to 2 packs, so still 1 booster pack in here, but it is 60 cards now, as it has been for a number of sets, or number of sets. Mystical Might, blue white, control. Lord of the Unreal and Sphinx of Ithun, I think that is. Grab for Power. They did an interesting thing here. So blue black with a combo in it. Crown of Empires, Scepter of Empires, and Throne of Empires. Runescarred Demon with Throne of Empires as our rares. It did have a Buried Ruin in it. We've got a red-black Bloodthirst deck with Flameburst Dragon and Warstorm Surge, and we also have the 5th one, which is the green-red, focusing on spiders, because you saw there were quite a number of spiders in the set. And we've got Arachnus Spinner and Garruk's Horde in here. Pretty classic stuff going on as well. And then, yeah, I don't really go through this. I've got suggestions for how you can up the deck. But what you could do is, as you've seen in previous sets, we were into the age of event decks. So there were 2. One was the Illusionary Might deck. I do actually have this. So this was this one which had Glacial Fortress. It was a white-blue deck with it had Glimmer Post and islands in it, and we'll have a look in a moment. But you can see what they did was the white sources are available only through Glacial Fortress, but they had put in here a Porcelain Legionnaire, which can be cast with Phyrexian mana. So, because this is an event deck, and I've made this point before, it gets to pull from cards that whatever was standard legal at the time. But of course you have to be mindful that if it goes back far enough, because of when the core set comes out, time-wise, there's always the chance that once the new set comes in, you're going to get situations where, come rotation, you might lose components of your event deck because at the point the event deck was put out, those cards were still legal in standard, but they're sufficiently old enough to cause or lose those cards when they rotate. So whenever you were buying any event deck, it was a good idea you kept one eye on when rotation was, just to make sure you got your money's worth. So this one, was playing around with illusions, and what it did was it had this Lord of Illusion, which while it was in play obviously had hexproof, so it couldn't be the target, or the illusion creatures couldn't be the target spells or abilities opponents control, which meant that as a consequence they wouldn't die if they were targeted, because they couldn't be the target. We've also got things like Grand Architect, which is going to buff blue creatures, and it will make an artifact creature become a blue creature until end of turn, and Porcelain Legionnaire is an artifact creature. Also got a number of other things in here, like a Steel Hellkite as well, which is not blue, but you can use Grand Architect to make it blue. Also things like Ether Adept as well. And then we had Vampire Onslaught, which was a mono black vampire deck, and again would have been pulling from earlier sets. We've got Verdant Catacombs in here, 2 Bloodcast, a Callistra Highborn. That was quite a pretty expensive card at one point, I seem to remember. And 2 Blades of the Blood Chiefs, and a Mimic Vat as well. Yeah, so we've got aggro plus combo in a deck. Oh, yeah, of course I should have mentioned this when I started doing this. All of the event decks had a sideboard. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that when we first started talking about them, actually. I don't think I ever said that. Yeah, so all the event decks, excuse me, from when they were first printed, had sideboards in. Okay, so moving on to the upcoming episodes. We have an episode of Commander Durdle. I had to think from over there. Now, I'll talk about it in the episode, but obviously there were no legendaries in here, no legendary creatures. So I opted to go with one of the rares, stroke mythic rares, and you probably guess what I've gone with. And then I've obviously chosen a particular commander from one of these 4. And then I've got the slim... actually I did want to talk about that, because one thing I noticed and I was curious about is in putting this deck together, because Garrick's spitting out these tokens, whatever commander I chose, I wanted the deck to have utility in it, whereby I was populating tokens. So I did a quick search in terms of all the cards in Magic which have populate in them somewhere. So you'll see which colours I went with. Look, Yeah, so I was curious, what legendaries have populate on them and what cards have populate on them, and then I was going to choose my legendary accordingly. So to head up the deck, my legendary creature, and you can see obviously from this, just looking at the colours, clearly populate is a white, red, green thing. I mean, there's a few red cards here, but quite obviously you can see, I haven't hit that set yet, but the set at which populate became a thing. Or sets at which populate became a thing. And here we have, well, yeah, spoiler alert, too late. So this is the deck. This is the card pool with the cards that aren't playable against the particular colour combination I chose taken out, and we'll be talking about that in the episode. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Again, after we do the Commander Dirtle episode, there is an episode of artwork where I just go through mainly the higher rarity cards that I pulled, and a few others, and that's going to be obviously for M12. So yeah, that drops on Friday. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I'll catch you in the next episode.